China flies a record number of military planes into Taiwan's air defense base on its National Day. As the People's Republic of China marks 72 years, we take this opportunity to look at how Hong Kong has changed and speak to those who have fled the city as Beijing tightens its grip. Plus,
I've come to find out why this key piece of Hong Kong protest art is now in Taichung.
A warm welcome to TaiwanPlus News. I'm Betty Chen. It's the biggest incursion in a single day since Taiwan's Ministry of Defense started making the numbers public. On Friday, China sent 38 military warplanes into Taiwan's air defense identification zone. Bing Wang has the details.
China rang in the 72nd anniversary of their founding with flag raisings and colorful celebrations in cities across the country. But Beijing also marked the day with a message to Taiwan. China conducted its biggest incursion in a single day into Taiwan's air defense identification zone since Taipei began publicly reporting such activities last year. The People's Liberation Army aircraft came in two waves. It started with 25 Chinese military aircraft during the day and 13 on the second flight on Friday night. While the incursions did not violate Taiwan's sovereign airspace, which extends 12 nautical miles from its coast, any intrusion into the ADIZ requires the Taiwanese Air Force to scramble planes to monitor the aircrafts, issue radio warnings, and mobilize air defense assets. Taiwan's Foreign Minister Joseph Wu highlighted the incursion in a tweet, saying that China no longer bothers faking excuses to enter the ADIZ airspace anymore. On Friday, China's Taiwan's Affairs Office called Wu a shrilling fly for promoting Taiwan globally, using a phrase from a poem by PRC founder Mao Zedong. Beijing views Taiwan as an inseparable part of its territory, even though the Chinese Communist Party has never governed the island of 24 million people. Patrick Chen and Bing Wang for TaiwanPlus.
We could be getting some good news in the fight against the pandemic. Pharmaceutical company Merck has announced a new antiviral pill that could reduce the severity of COVID infections. Phase 3 trials concluded Merck's antiviral pill could decrease the risk of COVID hospitalization and deaths by 50%. The pharmaceutical company is seeking emergency authorization for use in the United States. If given the green light, the pill could be the first medicine administered orally to lessen the effects of COVID-19. Lithuania's parliament has approved laws that could pave the way for a trade office in Taiwan. The move allows the Baltic state to open representative offices in countries in which it doesn't have formal diplomatic relations. It's seen as the latest sign of warming ties between the two sides. The new office is expected to open in Taipei by the end of the year. As we mentioned, October 1st is National Day in China. It is a holiday in Hong Kong, and this year marks a further tightening of Beijing's control on the city and its freedoms. In the past, it was a day for mass anti-government demonstrations, which are no longer possible. And that's why Hong Kongers in Taipei took to the streets to express their concerns and solidarity. Ryan Kilpatrick was there.
October 1st is a day of celebration in China, but for Hong Kongers, it was also a day of protest. Now that protest has become virtually impossible in Hong Kong itself, it's also a day of mourning for the rights and freedoms that they've lost under the tightening grip of Beijing. Behind me, Hong Kong exiles are gathering together with Tibetans and Taiwanese human rights advocates and labor organizers in a show and a celebration of their solidarity against a common adversary on this special day.
So tonight in this assembly, we, like people from Taiwan, from Hong Kong and from Tibet and from the other press, those who are suppressed by the Chinese authoritarian government. We are gathering here to show our solidarity and to show our pursuit for democracy and human rights.
With the familiar sounds of Cantonese reverberating in the air, it feels like being back in Hong Kong. But a Hong Kong that no longer exists. Under the national security law, these flags, these slogans, and this song are all now illegal.
This song is very meaningful for me and most of the Hong Kong the people. No matter where you are, when you hear this song, you will realize we still not yet to finish our target. We still have to fight on. Taiwan and Hong Kong is two different places, but we still fight on for the same target is the Chinese government. Yeah. 黎明來到，要光復這香港，同行兒女為爭議時代革命，祈求民主自由，萬世都不朽，我願榮光歸香港。These Hong Kongers may not have a country they can celebrate tonight, but they can celebrate new bonds, a new home, and whether they're able to return to Hong Kong or lay down roots here, they can also celebrate the rights and freedoms that they hold so dear. Ryan Hill-Kilpatrick and Damon Lin for TaiwanPlus.
Last year, hours before Hong Kong marked the 23rd anniversary of its handover from Britain to China, a sweeping national security law was imposed by the Communist Party. Beijing said it was necessary to bring stability, but the law made it easier to crack down on protesters and those in opposition to authority. TaiwanPlus's Divya Gopalan looks at some of the things Hong Kong has lost since the law took effect in July 2020.
Former lawmakers are among 47 awaiting trial. They were charged with subversion under the national security law. Hong Kong's legislature is left with mostly pro-Beijing politicians. They can now pass legislation without opposition. Once known as the city of protests, pro-democracy, anti-China and anti-government demonstrations could now be classified as illegal. The group that organizes the annual vigil to commemorate the 1989 Tiananmen Square crackdown disbanded in September after some of its leaders were arrested and put behind bars. It suggests public commemoration of the Tiananmen Square crackdown will no longer be tolerated. Hong Kong's largest pro-democracy paper shut down in June. Police had raided the offices of Apple Daily twice and arrested editors, executives, and its founder, Jimmy Lai, who is now behind bars. They were detained on suspicion of colluding with foreign forces under the national security law.
Despite criticism about diminishing freedoms, Hong Kong leader Carrie Lam says the city is on the right track under the national security law. Lam was speaking Friday during a reception to mark China's National Day that included a flag-raising ceremony and a singing of the Chinese national anthem.
可以講係比回歸以嚟嘅任何時候都更具備發揮一國兩制獨特優勢嘅條件，更可以積極融入國家發展大局，開創更美好嘅未來，體現同國家同發展共繁榮。
Author and journalist Steve Vines lived in Hong Kong and had no intention of ever leaving, but he left in July, feeling it was no longer safe for him to stay because of a diminishing space for freedom of expression. Steve spoke to TaiwanPlus's reporter Louise Watt and told her why he left his home of 35 years and his job with the state broadcaster RTHK.
Every single program produced by RTHK concerning public affairs has either been taken off the air, certainly all its archives have been removed, or has been transformed to such an extent that those programs are no longer recognizable. Nevertheless, the program I was working on, which was the only English language current affairs program, by the time that closed down, was indeed the only remaining current affairs program that includes both English and Chinese language. Every day that the program was on the air was a battle. It was censored before it went on the air, it was censored at the planning stage, and sometimes at the very last moment, people from the senior management said certain things could not be broadcast and were taken out.
How do you judge Hong Kong's media environment now? Because Hong Kong was known as being a bastion of media freedom in Asia. And then, of course, you've described what went on in RTHK. Apple Daily, we've seen the largest pro-democracy newspaper in Hong Kong, has now gone. What effect does this have on the rest of the journalists working in Hong Kong today?
I think journalism, from being if you like, a comfortable occupation, has become a high-risk, dangerous occupation for anybody who is not involved in the business of supporting the government, towing a propaganda line. The number of people I know who've left the profession is very high indeed. Not only left, but have left Hong Kong as well. But more generally, there is a sense of those who remain, a sense of intense nervousness, looking over their shoulders at every moment. Is this allowed? Is that going to get me into trouble? It's a matter which goes to the heart of what Hong Kong is. Hong Kong was a place with a high degree of liberty and certainly a high degree of freedom of expression, and that facilitated Hong Kong being an international centre. Because if you want to do business in the whole world in an international way, you must have a free flow of information. You mustn't be constantly fearful that someone will bang on your door in the early hours of the morning and arrest you for arbitrary reasons, charge you with subversion or one of the many other things that people are now being charged with.
Were there some moments in particular that pushed you to decide to leave Hong Kong?
There were. I mean, I wouldn't say there was a moment at which I thought, oh my goodness, the party's over. But I was very conscious, I suppose more than anything else, I was very conscious of the number of arrests being made of people who I know really quite well, who I know for a fact are not firebrand revolutionaries, who are not trying to seek the violent overthrow of the government, let alone the entire Chinese state. And I thought, well, if those sort of people can be arrested and taken away, incidentally, almost all of whom have yet to be actually tried, they remain on endless bail in detention without trial. But if that could happen to them, what chance is there for other people?
The public broadcaster RTHK responded by saying the comments from Steve Vines were misplaced and groundless. RTHK told TaiwanPlus that it enjoys editorial independence at the corporate level, and since March, senior management has taken up the editorial responsibility to review contentious programs. After the break, we continue our special Hong Kong coverage.
American merchant vessel, the Rover, is missing.
My home is dangerous.
Danger lurks everywhere for you.
是咧，呼声比我咧难教咯命，难教啦。
啲富商唔好咁繁花。
Mari ko kakasu na possibility to stay back in India.
These savages are all guilty of murder.
We are here to negotiate with the savages.
And I hope the savages understand your language.
They kill because they fear.
Everyone is living in fear.
What's on the fear of the settlers as their heads were cut from their bodies? Did you not teach you the song? It was beautiful. Can you sing it for me?
Welcome back to TaiwanPlus News. We continue our special program on Hong Kong and its people. Many Hong Kongers are making Taiwan their home, and they are bringing their cuisine with them. Rick Glowert has more.
After waves of anti-government protests in Hong Kong prompted a crackdown on freedoms by the government, an unprecedented number of Hong Kongers have fled the Chinese-ruled city to settle down in Taiwan. Taking advantage of the country's investment visa, many Hong Kongers have been selling up in Hong Kong and setting up restaurants and cafes in Taiwan, serving up their native cuisine. Danshui, a coastal district to the north of Taipei, is home to a growing number of Hong Kongers. Cousin, a Hong Konger who settled down in the country last year, runs Lion Rock Cafe, named after the famous Hong Kong mountain.
I'm Cousin. Nice to meet you. Yeah. This is Lion Rock Hong Kong Cafe in Danshui. A lot of local Taiwanese, they love Hong Kong food. So my cafe, we try to make everything authentic, Hong Kong style.
Cousin's guests enjoy pineapple buns and bowls of beef satay noodles, and include both Hong Kong exiles living in Danshui and local Taiwanese. Places like Lion Rock Cafe serve as community hubs for Hong Kong people in Taiwan.
The Hong Kong people moved to Taiwan in these 2 years is because of the political situation. And Taiwan is an ideal place for Hong Kongers to live.
The cafe is also a place to preserve and protect Hong Kong's unique cuisine and culture for those that will never return to the city.
Back to Hong Kong, because for me, Hong Kong is already gone.
Hong Kong's pro-democracy politicians are especially in the crosshairs of the national security law. TaiwanPlus reporter Ryan Ho-Kilpatrick spoke to Jeffrey Ngo, a former member of Joshua Wong's now-banned pro-democracy party, Demosisto. He is a PhD candidate and an advisor to the Hong Kong Democracy Council in Washington.
What we've seen in Hong Kong is that it has become a full-fledged police state and is wholly unrecognizable for those of us who've lived there for many years. And just looking at how the celebrations are like just basically in the Chinese mainland. And even though there's no room for any mass protests on the street, police presence is everywhere. And I think the scenes are quite overwhelming, and it offers a glimpse of what to expect in the foreseeable future at a time when there's the national security law in Hong Kong.
So how important do you feel transnational solidarity is as the struggle for democracy and freedom in Hong Kong moves beyond the borders of Hong Kong itself.
In the context of Hong Kong, it really began 7 years ago. During the umbrella movement, we saw Hong Kongers living abroad organize rallies in support of the umbrella movement back home. And that has continued through 2019 with the anti-extradition movement. And on this day, on October 1st, I know for a fact that many cities around the world, including here in Washington, that Hong Kongers would be gathering to protest against the Chinese government. And on the other level, in terms of building solidarity and alliances with other groups as well, that is also hugely important. And in my experience, it has actually gotten easier for us to march alongside Tibetans, the Taiwanese, the Uyghurs, because all of these communities, along with Hong Kongers, have increasingly felt the pressure coming from the Chinese government, whether it's with putting Muslim Uyghurs in Xinjiang in concentration camps, the continued crackdown in Tibet, military threat against Taiwan. So I think it is vital that we stand together. And, you know, with the case of the upcoming Winter Olympics in 2022 in Beijing, that has also been one of the issues that have managed to gather all these groups together, including Hong Kongers. So moving forward, I expect that collaboration to continue and to strengthen.
No person and no topic is exempt from the city's national security law. Even art has come under scrutiny. TaiwanPlus reporter Louise Watt visited one of Hong Kong's best-known artists, Casey Wong, who has set up his home and studio in Taichung so he can continue creating his art.
如果中央政府喺嚟緊嘅呢一年，仍然係揾一個假嘅普選方案，欺騙我哋市民嘅話，我哋今日喺度講清楚，明年今日佔領中環。
A giant cardboard sculpture moves from Hong Kong to its new home in central Taiwan, along with its creator, artist Casey Wong. This piece is one of many which takes aim at the Chinese Communist Party. Attack of the Red Giant, along with many of his other works, were at the heart of major Hong Kong protests. They symbolized the opposition many Hong Kongers felt towards the government in Beijing as it tightened its grip on the city.
There's like somebody controlling this giant, and of course, right now I think it's Xi Jinping.
Tens of thousands of Hong Kongers have left the city since Beijing imposed a sweeping national security law last year. Casey's breaking point came in March, when dozens of former democratic legislators and activists were hauled into court on charges of subversion.
For me, that is a big alarm bell that symbolizes no law, no order anymore for Hong Kong. Some of those arrested are themselves lawyers who have law training, and some of them are still in prison right now.
He left Hong Kong in July and is now in self-imposed exile in Taichung in Taiwan.
It offers freedom of artistic expression, like old Hong Kong used to be. And for me, that's the most important thing, that I can explore fine arts and do my work without worrying censorship or worrying about somebody going to temper my topics, my subject matter.
At a time when chanting a slogan or even holding up a sign could get you arrested, Wong was worried his art could put him behind bars. The all-encompassing nature of the legislation means what is illegal is no longer spelt out clearly.
The way I look at it is like turning the law into art. The government have turned the law into something open for interpretation. I don't think I will ever go back to Hong Kong, to tell you honestly. The reason being is Hong Kong is, for me, only represents a beautiful empty shell. You know, like a beautiful car with no engine. So the spirit, for me, is not there anymore.
He has tried to immortalize that spirit in a series of cocktails, exploding bottles locked down in mini time capsules. Casey says they are sealing in the energy and power of Hong Kong's people against tyranny and injustice. Casey's studio doubles as a private museum, a tribute to the home he lost. He wants to preserve the past and Hong Kong's spirit, so no one can take that away from him. Chris Ma and Louise Watt for TaiwanPlus.
Thanks for watching TaiwanPlus News. I'm Betty Chen. We'll leave you with a song recorded by Casey Wong before he left Hong Kong. He is singing Vera Lynn's We'll Meet Again. Please join our global audience on TaiwanPlus.com. Stay safe and see you next time.
I won't forget you, sweetheart. We'll meet again. Don't know where, don't know when, but I know we'll meet again some sunny day. Keep smiling through, just like you always do, till the blue sky drive the dark clouds far away. So will you please say hello to the folks that I know? Tell them I won't be long.